Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle. And as you probably know, Steve lives out in Denver. Scott lives in Dallas. I get to travel out there fairly frequently to both of those states. But just last weekend, I was on my way to Denver, and I left LAX, and I saw something I just do not want to see again, but I know I'm going to. At the American Airlines terminal at LAX just a weekend ago, there were 600 or 700 people in line, and there was one TSA screener. One.
Wow.
And LAX apparently is not the worst of it, because in Denver, people were backed up for miles, literally almost half a mile, all the way out to the parking garage. There were occasions in Denver when literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people missed their flights because it took them over an hour, sometimes almost 2 hours, to get through security. So the question is, if the TSA misses 95% of the things that they're supposed to catch, do we really need this TSA? And why the delays? And why is there one person screening hundreds and hundreds at an airport? So, Steve, let's start with you. Used to be that airlines did their own security, that they were responsible for their own security, and you could make a choice on how fast you want to go through security by picking which airline you want to fly. They basically turned all of that over to the government. Now, when you go flying, you do get to interact with your government. The government is the part that makes you wait for an hour and a half in line while everybody else is moving along pretty swiftly. So my question for you, Steve, is with a 95% failure rate, that's the failure rate, it's not the success rate, is it time to privatize this organization that everybody seems to hate so much, the TSA?
Oh yeah, watch where you're putting those blue gloves, buddy. I don't gamble, but I love Las Vegas. I love that city. It's so over the top. It amazes me that Americans, and of course it was Americans who were able to build such a thing out in the middle of nowhere where there's no water at all, and these fountains, the lights, everything, the restaurants. Now Vegas is a food city, and my wife and I, we love to eat, and so we went to Vegas. It was just a quickie last minute trip back in August, because airfares and hotel rates in Vegas in August are dirt cheap, as you can imagine. So we got this phenomenal room for almost nothing, but we almost didn't make it there. We planned this early morning flight because we wanted to get there. We were staying at the Palazzo. We wanted to get there early enough so that we could have breakfast at this one place that's right next to the hotel check-in. And we almost missed our flight because of security. Now, I get to the airport 90 minutes to 2 hours ahead of time. That's just the way I am. Yeah, we know what we're doing. We've flown a lot. And I can't tell you the number of times I've flown out of Denver International Airport, just the hundreds. It's got to be. I know what security there is like, especially at dark 30 on what I think was a Tuesday morning in the middle of August, right? So we're not talking about peak Thanksgiving or Christmas travel time here. We waited in that line for an hour and a half. We made our flight for exactly one reason. There was a woman and her child, the last people to board our flight, other than Melissa and me. A woman and her child were having some sort of trouble with the child's ticket, and the only reason they hadn't been let in and close the jetway door behind them was because of this trouble. And so Melissa and I were able to sneak through and take our seats and make our flight. Now, it's no big deal. It was a happy couple spending a romantic couple of nights in Vegas enjoying ourselves. But the fact is that the TSA doesn't work, and they lied to me. Everybody's grumbling about the wait, and the TSA official, I heard him say to more than one person in line, "Oh, it's like this every day." Well, you know what? Maybe it is now, but it wasn't before. We've got to fix this thing, and the first thing to do is abolish the TSA, because it's the worst kind of security theater.
That's right. Now, Scotty, the TSA has apparently never prevented any of these hijackings. Well, let me rephrase that. The incidents where somebody acts up on an airplane have always been solved by the passengers on the airplane.
Yeah.
Now, here's the part that's interesting, Scott. This situation with security lines has gotten much worse lately, and it's expected to stay bad. Expected to stay very bad throughout the summer. People are going to be inconvenienced for hours. People are going to miss their flights. So here's the question, Scott. When you ask why there's only one person screening 800 people, they'll tell you that they're low on funds, that the TSA didn't get the budget that it wanted, and so on. We're spending $4 trillion, $4,000 billion a year, and we can't do this one thing right. Now, it tells me, Scott, that something is going on here besides a lack of funds. It tells me that this is kind of a form of extortion. In other words, nice travel plans you have there sure would be a shame if something happened to them.
Oh, exactly. This is like when there's a so-called government shutdown, and there really has never been one, but when there's a so-called government shutdown, Of course, we shut down an outdoor memorial, the World War II memorial. We block the public access to something that is essentially an open amphitheater-like area on a grassy mall that you can just walk through.
Yep.
So the idea is that the people who are pushing to increase budgets want you to feel the pain. They want that point of contact to be as agonizing as possible so they can make that argument. And the next time they come around and say, we need a budget increase for the Homeland Security Department, you go, oh my goodness, aren't they? That's true, because I had to wait with 500 people in line for 3.5 hours or whatever. Last time I went to an airport, there was a TSA agent in uniform standing there with an iPad, holding it up in front of them. It had an arrow on it. There were 2 lanes that you could take. The arrow would change direction when the TSA agent touched the screen. The TSA agent was hired to be a human kiosk. Just stood there literally doing this. And then if you had a question like, which way should I go? They would say, this way. They go, this way. In the
They need
direction
an
of the
employee with an
arrow.
iPad for that.
Holding up the iPad. So now I'll tell you, I have flown to Tel Aviv. I've flown to Israel. When you fly to Tel Aviv, in and out of that airport, they have terrific security, but you never feel like it's holding you up. You feel like it's just part of the welcome. I mean, it was unbelievable. There's like got to be like a 20-year-old guy with an Uzi slung over his shoulder going, hi, welcome to Tel Aviv. How you doing? Hey, what are you going to do? How long you staying? And he just kind of makes casual conversation with you, and you're just say, well, we're going to say it's such and such a hotel. We're going to go down to Beersheba and look at this thing in the desert, and then I'm going to plant a bomb under the and they secure the place by keeping the terrorists from being able to hide in the anonymity of crowds. We haven't figured that out yet, and everything we do with the TSA creates the anonymity of crowds. It creates known protocols that terrorists can observe and then counteract, and it spends a huge amount of money to do nothing but inconvenience passengers and make sure that you don't have any sunscreen by the time you get to the beach.
Hey, oh, I'm sorry, Scott, you just made me think of something real quick. The next time we have one of these shutdowns where the federal government is holding Americans hostage, in some cases literally, on their buses in national parks, and in other cases just holding their vacations hostage because they can't get to the World War II memorial with their 95-year-old great-grandfather, we need to look into if there's a way to prosecute the federal government under the RICO Act that we designed to prosecute mobsters.
Well, you certainly make a good case for that. Folks, when I was in Denver, I talked to a person who was standing in line. She swore this was true in Denver and was moving so slowly that she got to stand right next to the same TSA agent for quite a while. And while she was standing there, a supervisor came over and in very hushed tones said, all right, look, you're really going to have to improve because there's 3 guns that you let through in the last hour, not in the last day, not in the last week, the last hour. We got nothing but the best people on the job. Look, as Scott pointed out, real security is real security. This is a form of kabuki designed to make the American people feel safe when, in fact, it's essentially worthless. If 5% of weapons and bombs got through the TSA, that would be scandalous. The fact that 95% of them get through is beyond scandalous. It's not even funny anymore. Yeah. It's just appalling. It's absolutely appalling. And as Scott pointed out, this is, in fact, a form of extortion. This is the government's way of making sure that you feel the pain of any kind, forget cuts, any kind of pain that doesn't come with them getting all of the money that they ask for. So as you stand in line during the next several months and probably the next several years, and as you're standing there in line waiting for one person to check you off along with the other 950 people that are extending for a quarter mile behind you, remember that this is not just your government in action. This is not just the difference between private enterprise and the government and the public sector. This is a government agency that is forcing you to take a knee to its will because they're the only people that can stop you, and they will. And they will. It's un-American, it's unpatriotic, it's disgraceful, it's disgusting, and it's standard operating procedure now for this federal government. For Steve Green, Scott Ott, and the rest of the Right Angle team, pretty much covers it.
That's it.
I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.